One of the things that always sits in my mind when I think about compromise is this phrase I heard. He basically said, in a compromise, neither side wins. Once we step past our own fears and we can get into the point where we're asking the question, why am I actually in this relationship with this person? And if the answer to that question is, I'm here to get something, well, the compromise and the negotiation is all just like cover fluff for something that's much more problematic at a deeper level. But if I'm in this relationship to grow and to give something to another human being, then compromise is kind of a pretty thing, because it's like I need this to be within my realm of giving, so I'm not sacrificing myself to be there. So it needs to be within that realm. So if we're in this place and we have some conflict and I need to figure out what am I capable of giving you where I'm not neglecting myself or not abandoning myself. So I'm true to myself. Within the realm of that, what am I capable of giving you that will help your life be better? And that, to me, would be a mature, healthy, loving relationship. And it's like, I'm not going to get everything I want, right? But you're also not going to get everything you want. But I'm going to give within my ability in some way that I think it's going to help your life be better. To me, that's a great situation, because what happens after that is the person feels seen, heard, wanted, chosen, prioritized, and then the relationship deepens, because it's like, oh, you did sacrifice, right? See, so much of what we're doing in relationships is we're looking for the other person to sacrifice. We're looking for the other person to give up something that they value for me. That is what a child does with a parent. It's like instinctive. It's baked into the cake. The child is like, I want to feel wanted, chosen, and prioritized. And if you're prioritizing other things in your world over me, I feel like I'm second place. But if I feel like you're sacrificing things for me and my well-being, suddenly I feel prioritized. But where this gets tricky is the codependent enmeshment bit, is that we're in a codependent enmeshment. We see the other person sacrificing all the time and we're like, ooh, I feel so special. They are abandoning themselves to do it, which means that resentment will build over time. And then I'm like, oh, well, she's giving to me so much, I need to give back so much. Here, let me make you a birthday cake and take out the garbage and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sacrificing myself to help her feel loved and prioritized. And then my inner child starts building and building resentment. That's the codependent formula, right? And that never goes well. Well, depends. Long-term viability is very low. It can feel amazing in the short term. It can be like fireworks and explosions and all the amazing sex and drama and everything else. That is in the short term. But the staying power for those kinds of relationships is entirely dependent upon self-abandonment.
Should I ask my partner about his love language before I will sacrifice? Because, I can do very important thing for me and feel, well, that's just not my love language.
Right.
I had this experience and you feel so destroyed.
Yeah, I agree.
So we should start from this.
Yeah, because if my vision, my senses are not tuned, this is what the love language book is all about. If my senses are not tuned to listen to the fact that they're giving and sacrificing, I won't see it. And if I don't see it, then I don't feel chosen and prioritized, right? So I have to tune my senses into what they're capable of giving and where they are sacrificing for me, so that I can see it and recognize it and honor it and feel it. And then it's like, ooh, I feel loved. That's learning to speak another person's love language. At the same time, again, in the negotiation, I'm going to try to listen. I'm going to try to learn your love language so that I can hear it and see it and feel it and witness it. But I also need you to learn mine so that you can, over time, begin to speak it with more and more fluency. This is one of the hallmark traits of like kind of the codependent pattern is I'm going to sacrifice silently. I'm going to do things for you. I'm going to give up. I'm going to cancel these accounts. I'm going to not speak to that person. I'm going to tiptoe in the door. I'm whatever, right? I'm going to start vacuuming every day. I'm American. We have carpets, right? So I'm going to do all these things because in my mind, that's what we're supposed to do.
That's my definition of sacrifice.
Exactly.
But he had
Exactly.
completely different.
And so now I'm doing this, vacuuming and washing your car and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, man, that girl doesn't appreciate me at all. She doesn't do anything for me, right? So it's like, what's the other word they use? Covert contracts. This is the covert contract idea. That book, that comes from the book No More Mr. Nice Guy, which I highly recommend. But it's this idea that we enter into this relationship with all these contracts, but they're covert in the sense that we've never spoken. We've never I've never talked about my expectations. I've never spoken with you and agreed upon that these are reasonable needs or expectations or that I can want this from you, right? So if we go on with covert contracts, it's going to be a rough ride. So I can see how that's connected to the negotiation compromise thing. Does that make sense to other people? That like, you got to really figure out, the starting point to all this stuff, better relationships, better healing, everything is that self-awareness bit. It's like, I got to know who I am inside. Both of them, right? I need to know what my conscious personality, entity, the I that I think of as Kirby, what does he want from the world? And how does he try to get it? And what manipulative ways does he try to achieve those things? Whatever, right? But I also need to explore my 5-year-old Kirby and say, like, what does he want in the world? Because they will be different much of the time. One of the goals in my world, the goal of healing is bringing these two together. And if they're not on the same page, at least they can work in harmony, kind of like a choir, right? That it's like the adult says, hey, we need to go to the gym and work out so that we can be fit and, have a longer lasting life. And the kid's like, no, I want to sit at home on the couch and watch Netflix. And then you say, okay. And then you kind of got to do this back and forth until, honestly, now that I think about it, this is the place where compromise begins. This is the place where negotiation and compromise, you can practice every single day your compromise and negotiating skills and that relationship. It's that here's my adult and there's my child, and they want different things. And this is beautiful, honestly, because what we do so much of the time is the adult one is saying, I want something, go away. I'm not going to listen to you. I don't even want to know what you're talking about. Just go, shut up. Go in the corner. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to get validated. Yeah.
But how can we share with our partner about needs of our child if we don't know it? Very often we don't know it. We are okay with our adult. Okay, I can share my adult, he can share his adult. But actually our inner child are hiding. We don't know it's about ourselves, how to share it, what to do.
That is the work. That's the thing, that it is the way you show up and assemble a healthy relationship is by doing all the homework ahead of time. Like, you need to get in touch with your inner child. You need to get in touch with your primal wants, needs, motives without shame. That is, I will never stress this enough. I have to say, what is the thing I want here? And be like, and listen openly without shame. And if that kid comes up and says, I want to like drive a fast car, and I want to be like the most popular guy on the street, and I would just want to be surrounded by lollipops and ice cream cones all day. You know, my adult's being like, well, that's pretty childish, but I can't do that. If I do that, he'll be like, oh, you don't like me, and he'll go back into hiding. You have to do this thing where you like tease the inner child out without shame and say anything you want. It can be selfish, it can be hateful, it can be racist, like whatever, right? Allow him to speak so that he feels comfortable speaking with me. After that, then I bring in, I'm like, okay, I hear you, I validate, I see that you want to do this very violent thing, okay, that's cool, right? But we're not going to do that, right? I see that you want to do this thing that's unhealthy for a need. Help me understand what your need is. And then once you get tuned in with the need, then you say, okay, I'm going to get you there, but we're not going to do it the unhealthy way, right? We're not going to deal with this anger by just like mowing down people, right? Again, American. That's not a good way. We're coming out with just like aggressive anger because we feel offended is not going to be, it's not going to get us to the place we want. So what's going on? Like, what other ways can we deal with this stress that we feel that's not going to lead to our ruin? And remember, the child doesn't have the ability to project in the future. He doesn't have the ability to say 1 + 1 = 2, or if I blurt out all my anger, it's going to come back and ruin me, right? He doesn't have that ability. He's relying upon the conscious mind to do that for him. So the child says, I'm scared, I'm terrified, anger erupts. He pushes the anger button. The anger flies across the curtain. The anger lands over here. The conscious mind, if we're unhealed, we just get lost in it. It's like a tidal wave comes. It's like, I'm angry now. I'm an angry person. Point fingers, shame, blame, whatever. So if we can calm that down, then we get over here and we say, oh, my inner child just threw anger across the curtain. That means he's sad and fearful about something. I need to not act on this, and I need to turn towards him instead of away from him and ask him, what is the thing you're scared of? What is the thing you're sad about right now? And then once we get all that figured out, then we can say, okay, now we're going to take all this energy with all this epinephrine and cortisol and everything else that's surging through my system. I'm going to go do something with it. Healthy. Right? That wasn't too much of a thing. Right? Okay. Now you're next on the list. Avoidance. Anybody else have avoidant tendencies? That's cool that you know that. You guys, I kind of mostly identify as anxious over here? Yes, no? Do you know your attachment style? Okay, that's cool.
I'd say I'm a little bit of both, depending on the context.
Yeah, that's really common. Do you know your attachment style?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You don't have to share.
I'm pretty healthy.
Oh, okay. Do you know yours? No, it's oh, here, let me talk about that for a second. I do it like this. Here's all the people on Earth. And here's the secure up at the top. Down here is insecure. Okay. Psychological terms, it's not really what you think, is that insecure in this case, we're talking about attachment styles. And attachment styles are something you can observe in the first 18 months of a child's life and then onward going through. And it has to do with, here's the toddler that's somewhere between, somewhere under 3. We put the toddler in a room with the primary attachment figure, usually mom. Now we take mom out of the room. Now the child is sitting there alone in a room with toys. We wait until the child begins to get, the stress in the child begins to rise. So we the child is feeling some level of internal stress. Now we take the mother, put the mother back in the room, and then we watch the strategies that the child employs in order to reestablish connection. There will be, they lump together in these groups. And the anxious group will be like, oh, mommy, 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 right? It's just like, oh, you're back. And it's just like, I need touching, and I need connection, and eye gazing, and like, come with me, and I'm gonna come play with my toys, but come with me because you just left, and that was scary, and now I need you next to me all the time. The avoidance, on the other end of the spectrum, oh, they're over here, anxious. AP, anxious, preoccupied. Anxious, which I just described, preoccupied is this idea that the thoughts about the connection begin to preoccupy the mind. Called rumination, intrusive thoughts, other things. That basically, the person with this kind of attachment style, their mind will be consumed by thoughts about the person or the connection because they're so worried about that connection happening. Now, here at the other end, we have DA, which is dismissive avoidant. Okay, so the dismissive avoidant child, the mom comes back and it's just like, oh. And it's just like, you hurt me. Now it's basically, you hurt me, now I'm punishing you. You can watch the children do this. It's this like, yes, you're here, and I want you to be there, but I'm angry at you for hurting me. I just dealt with all this stress inside my system, and it was scary, and it's your fault, and I'm unhappy about it. But it's like, I want you here, and I want to have connection with you. At the same time, I'm going to be over here with my, so that the avoidant baby will be like, turn and go play with toys and kind of be like this, right? Like looking over to make sure that the mom is still there, but yet not really engaging.
Why adult women usually behave like that?
Well, that's it's a whole. Well, we can come back to that. I mean, it's a lot of people like to make this into a gendered thing, men to act this way and women act this way, and I really don't think it is. I just don't. The numbers that I've read about and the activities I've seen just don't map out that way.
Do you think it's just stereotype?
It's just a stereotype. Yeah. I mean, there might be. It might be. I've met everyone on earth, but like when I sit with a person and work with them, it's like it could be man, woman, child, anything, and it could be evenly anxious, evenly avoidant, and a little bit of both, right? So. Think of it this way, like the anxious side, this is the spectrum right here, right? And the anxious side is like majority of focus is going outside themselves. They're like, are they here? Are they approving of me? Are they validating me? Do I look good in their eyes? So the majority of their kind of emotional energy is focused outward, and there's this total abandonment of and ignoring of what's going on inside. On the avoidant end of the spectrum, it's this idea where it's, in general, the majority of the emotional energy is here, and it's like, what am I going to feel good about? Where's my safety going to be? And then, because this is scary, and then someone walks up on the outside and says, hey, I want to connect with you, and they're just like, right? That's connection is scary. And so avoidants have this very difficult internal battle between I want to have connection, but connection, deep down, connection is terrifying. So there's this like fundamental inner war, this inner conflict, that is a totally different type of struggle than the struggle of the anxious. And it consumes a tremendous amount of energy to manage this internal war. And so, and these, they consume a tremendous amount of energy, constantly reaching for some kind of external energy or validation. So they're both consuming tremendous amounts of energy. And then there's this other one they call fearful avoidant. Which was in the original studies back in the 60s, it was called disorganized attachment. And the reason was, well, take that back. One step further, it was unclassifiable. Because the baby's here, the mom goes, the mom comes back, and then they're watching this baby and they're just like, what are they doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense. It's like they're moving towards, they're coming away. It's just like, hey, I want you. Oh, yeah. Right? It's just like, it's like this scrambling, come towards me energy, and as soon as they get close, they like push away and they're like, no. And it becomes this like, it seems like total chaos. Eventually they came back and they looked at all the stuff, and they reproduced the studies, and they said, no, there is a strategy here, it just doesn't make it didn't make any sense to the original researchers. So the original researchers called it unclassified, and then they called it disorganized, and later on they said, well, having anxious and avoidant are kind of neutral terms, and then having a third one that's called disorganized was stigmatizing for people. They said that, like, to be classified as disorganized attachment style, people, they're basically activate their shaming. We don't want to do that, so they changed the name to fearful avoidant. Okay? So that's a way of looking at attachment theory. Now, anybody want to go the next layer deeper?
Yeah.
Which is where I live. So this is where I started. I started learning all this stuff. I originally took the test. I took the test, and I was 3% secure. I was 35% anxious. I was 31% VA and something else, whatever left over. I was equally spread across the spectrum. But when you talk, the school that I was in, they're like, they want to know your label. What's your 2-letter label? Are you AP, FA, or DA? And I'm like, well, I'm evenly spread. I'm like, when it comes to insecure attachment, I'm an overachiever. I'm good at all of them. But eventually I took the highest one, which was, no. What happened was, the reason this all happened is because I was going through a big breakup. Where? A DA. This woman was like very, very extremely dismissive avoidant. So I learned everything I possibly could about her attachment style, became an expert at it, so I could be helpful, just not the right way. Eventually, I'm working with someone and they say, maybe you should learn your own attachment style. And I'm like, oh, well, that's easy, I'm anxious. And they said, is it really that easy? And I'm like, oh, you're right. So then I spent the next 4 or 5 months becoming an expert at the anxious style. And after that period of time, I realized, I said, actually, no, I'm not anxious. I'm in the middle one. I'm fearful avoidant. So then I became an expert on that one. So in the process of about a year and a half, I became an expert on all 3 insecure attachment styles. And then I actually started digging deeper. And what I realized is that underneath it, are the core wounds. The core wounds are kind of like, I'm not enough, I'm unlovable, I will be abandoned, I'm used, they will use me, I'm second best, I'm bad. These are what core wounds sound like. The core wounds arise from this part here, is that I needed the 5 pillars of attachment, and I didn't get them. I didn't get one or more of them. And when I didn't get them, I didn't feel wanted, chosen, or prioritized. Because I don't feel wanted, chosen, or prioritized, why not? Is there something wrong with me? Turns out that's exactly how a baby brain works. We don't develop theory of mind. Theory of mind is the idea that this thing that I'm interacting with is a separate human, a separate individual, and they have their own wants, needs, desires, everything else. It's called theory of mind. Theory of mind doesn't even develop until like 3 or 4. So at the early stages, all the attachment wounds are forming. We literally are in a completely high fadeaways, which is kind of like hypnosis, and completely narcissistic. We start off as selfish, self-oriented, the rest of the world doesn't exist, no compassion, it's like, it's not no compassion, very low compassion. Anyway, the core wounds happen early on, and then what happens is I develop a coping mechanism. I don't want to feel that ever again. In that moment that I was needing support and I'm reaching out for mom or dad or whoever, and they rebuffed me, or they were too busy having their own fight, or passed out drunk or whatever, right? In that moment that I needed and it was not there, the only thing the child brain can conclude is there's something wrong with me. And I don't ever want to feel that again. So we dig into old psychological patterns, kind of probably instinctive or genetic, and we say, how can I avoid feeling that ever again? It's like, become fixated on somebody else. My mom sucked. My mom didn't give me the kind of love that I wanted. Will you do it? Will you do it? Will you do it? So that's kind of again, this is more on the anxious side. On the avoidance side, it's like, I'm only 30% avoidance. You don't have to tell me how close I am. The avoidance side is this idea that it's like, I want that kind of connection. I want that kind of someone loving me, prioritizing me. But as soon as they do, I feel terrified, I feel trapped, and I want to get away. Strangler. Yeah.
Question. So you mentioned what's it called again? Something the mind when the
Theory of mind.
Theory of mind, when the child realizes there is an other and they're not. It's not just. Do you think that people with narcissistic traits, like they have those because they never really developed past to the theory of mind, and so they're kind of stuck in this like self-oriented state of survival?
Yeah, that's one of the predominant theories on narcissism. I'm a big believer in that. Yeah, I get a little bit edgy on the topic of narcissism because I've seen it. I mean, I've seen it from so many different angles. I've been like in relationships with people that are legitimately diagnosed with it. I've probably at least one or both my parents, blah, 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 whatever. But it's like, I'm now of the opinion that what we call narcissism is actually this. Yeah. And it's like the type of trauma. No, that's not to say real narcissists don't exist. They do, and there's people that are legitimately evil and they want to do harm, like that stuff. But I think what we're going to think of as an adult narcissist that's on, like, we say the legitimate, evil, whatever, that they leapfrogged, they went from like no theory of mind, and they leapfrogged over this part where it's like, I'm going to recognize you as a separate entity, and I'm going to see you as something that will help my fear go away. They will frequently talk about the fueling or the source or whatever. Supply. Right, that's the word. Right, they talk about narcissists will have a supply, and they're using you as your supply. Yes, absolutely. But we all do that. Anytime you're severely triggered, you drop into a state of primitive, self-oriented survival mode. And when I'm in primitive, self-oriented survival, I don't give a fuck about you. You exist, or everything I know about you becomes a tool that I will use to achieve safety and survival. And okay, so what happens if someone's trauma is so severe that they're like that basically 24/7? Well, we're going to label them a narcissist, when it's really just like a 24/7 trauma activation. And it's like, there is a way out, but it's like, it's not, there is a way out for that person, but their romantic partner that is intimately connected to all the traumas is not the person to do that. right? That relationship needs to end, which is what I try to teach people. Know yourself so well. I get in this fight all the time in the school that I'm in. When you know yourself so well, and you know what your boundaries are, you know what your non-negotiables are, you know what your values are, and you will not bend on those things because you're confident enough to stand your ground, you become immune to narcissists. We don't have to fight back against them. We just have to be immune from them. Like the person that shows up with that kind of supply consuming energy, they self-select. They see you being strong and there's like, never mind. That they will see you as something scary because you are grounded. So I'm in a big school for thousands of people complaining about narcissistic exes and stuff, and sometimes I have to shut my mouth because I'm just like, they really don't like what I'm saying. Is that like, your defense against narcissism lies within you. My defense that I had to build for my narcissist people in my life, I had to develop that within me. And now it's like, it's just like they bounce off. They show up and it's like, oh, not interested. They move away. And you're like, oh, okay. And yeah.
I have a question. Where do you draw the boundary between narcissism?
Do you mind repeating the question?
The question is, how do you draw the line between narcissism and extreme egocentrism? And I will answer that. The answer is the other person doesn't matter at all.
That's narcissism.
No, that's my job. Are they narcissist? I don't know. Are they extremely egocentric? I don't know. Are they avoidant? I don't know. Do they have TRQ elemental P? I don't know. It doesn't matter. They're attempting to get a label on their mental illness does nothing for my well-being. All it does is give me a false sense of safety because I think it's like, oh, well, if that person's a DA, they're gonna act like this and blah, 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 blah. That's totally a distraction. My job is to say, something has happened, I feel stress, let's get inside. What are we feeling right now? We're feeling scared, we're feeling icky. Okay, that's enough. We can keep going if you want. It's like, yeah, angry a little bit. This doesn't feel good. Okay, what need do we have in this moment? We need space from this stimulus because we don't know how to process that kind of stimulus yet. Okay, boundary time. Hey, it's been nice talking with you, but I need to take some space. Boom. Are they narcissists? We don't know. Are they DA? We don't know. Are they extremely egocentric? I don't know. Are they dangerous? Maybe. But I just created space, and now I'm safe, right? And now if I have a capacity, I can watch them. I mean, there's other things we can do after that, right? But it's like we become so fixated on trying to figure out what's the other person's attachment style, or their Myers-Briggs, or their call sign, what's that thing with the stars? Anyway, Gemini, Virgo, whatever. Like we spent so much time trying to figure all that out, and all that's doing is it's taking this big, complex, fascinating, miraculous organism and put them in a little box. And I'm gonna put a label on that box. That label's gonna be scary and be like, I know what you are, now I can avoid you. And it's like, that is me acting on my fears. Now, if I'm gonna be strong and I wanna be stable, I mean like secure, then I'm gonna be like, yeah, this is scary. It's like, then again, self-awareness. I go in and I say, how much can I engage in this dance? What's it like to dance with someone that you can tell in the first 10 seconds is hazardous? This is a dance teacher, right? So it happens, right? You dance with someone, because you're a follow. It's a little bit different for leads. For follows,
And I also need.
but yeah, but if you're following and you know within 10 seconds, maybe 5, that this person is dangerous,
Great space.
Great space. Yeah. And if you
Oh,
get
you saved home.
Yeah,
Thank you.
right. I mean, you can. Sometimes it's like I'm going to be boundaried in my movement. I'm not going to do anything where I step off balance. I'm not going to commit any too close. You know, there's those are kind of like physical boundaries we establish. But if it keeps being hazardous, we develop more and more space, and eventually you just walk away. Exact same thing in relationships. I can be here and be present with you, and I can start to see that this relationship is probably not so great. But I don't have to run away. If I'm stable with myself, I don't have to run away. I can be here, and I can maybe 10 seconds or 10 minutes, I might be able to have some kind of positive impact on this person's life. If that's within my capacity for the moment. If I'm not self-abandoning myself to be there, right? I also might not be interested. Be like, nah, I got other things to do today. I don't want to spend any time on you. That's okay too, right? But like the thing where we see the person that triggers our wounds and they become scary and then I run, none of that is because of the other person. That's all me and my fears. So that's the distinction I make between narcissism, egoism, and all these labels. Oh, absolutely, 1,000%. It is overused. People will like find some YouTube channel, they'll start following Dr. Ramani, eye roll, and they'll just be like, I'm an expert on narcissists now, my ex was a covert narcissist, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, it does happen, for sure. I don't want to dismiss or gaslighting those people or those experiences. But I do fully believe 100% that I can say this. Every relationship that I got into with someone that would, social media would label a narcissist, was my choice. I went there. And not only did I go there, I went there knowingly. Some part of my inner child said, that one. Why? Oh, look, she acts just like that. What? That was a facepalm moment for me of epic proportions. The moment that I mean, I've said this in other workshops, but like there was a moment that I walked into a party, and there's all these people I don't know, and there was one in the corner, and my picker just went, that one. And I was like, and I've just kind of begun doing this work. I said, okay, don't act. Just, you know, I went to put myself in the kitchen or bathroom or something. And I said, dude, what's going on? Why? And then we slowed it all down and eventually started figuring out that it's like, she was like broadcasting this insecurity. She was broadcasting this insecurity and neediness louder than anybody else in the room. And I was like, dude, you just picked the unhealthiest person in this room on purpose. And he's just like, yeah, because she'll never leave us. What the fuck? Yeah. I was just like, oh my God.
Did you continue to date her?
No. This is just a party. I avoided her for the whole rest of the night. I mean, I was like, walked away being like, and I was thinking about all the previous times this had happened, and I was like, that 100% could have turned into something. 100% on that night at that party that could have turned into something. And I chose to not do it. And I was just like, I felt like Neo in the Matrix. And it's like, okay. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta get this out there because I know other people are doing this. Anyway, yeah. Did I talk about avoidance enough? You feel like that was covered? Okay, cool. These two, my own standards and emotionally available. Am I emotionally available? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, Cliff Notes probably just no. But
Virtually or forever?
for all of us. I mean, but so let me see if I can. Okay. One of the things, the best things we can do about knowing myself is knowing when I get triggered. Which is why so many of these workshops, people show up, and I'm like, I'm going to ask you to find the place where you are terrified and write it down on a piece of paper. And then I'm going to ask you to merge up with someone else and tell that person. Because that's terrifying. Because knowing where our terror is points directly to where our wounds are. And once we know where the wounds are, then we can work backwards from there and be like, oh, I've got this huge wound around being abandoned, and I feel this terror if that girl I'm choosing at the moment is talking to another guy, whatever, right? Or whatever, right? Or my friend isn't ever going to speak to me again, or blah, 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 whatever, right? Anyway, I've got this terror that comes from my abandonment wound. And if I've got that much terror around that dynamic, it's going to affect other parts of my life. And so the best thing I can do if I step into a relationship with someone is to say, I've got a terror right here. It's not around this topic. And when these things happen, it lights up like a bonfire and it hijacks my system and I lose my mind. That's the truth of me in this moment. And then if I want extra credit, then I go, and these are the things I'm doing about it. So I say, here's my wound, here's where my terror lies, and this is the work that I'm doing in my life to try to help that be better. And I'm telling you all this so that you have a true and faithful representation of me inside your life. And now you get to choose how close you want to be to this. That was very emotional. That's advanced mode. A lot of people can't handle it because they want to play the dance. They want to do the little thing. It's just like, I want you to act like I'm super important and hot and sexy, and I'm going to act like you're super important and hot and sexy, and we're going to take selfies and post on Instagram and blah, 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 right? We're going to do this little thing where we create this illusion of a relationship that we project to the world and say, this is how great we are. That's one guess. Yes.
I would also, if someone asks if I'm emotionally unavailable, I'd also think to myself, like, am I ready to be vulnerable? And be vulnerable with this person.
Yeah.
And maybe when you think about it as vulnerability versus something so close like emotion, it makes it a little easier. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's kind of like, am I ready to potentially let this person destroy me? Am I feeling resilient enough that I'm willing to undergo that risk?
Yeah.
That's kind of a good way of measuring it, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, last week we talked about vulnerability, and the test for vulnerability is this scary? And if it's scary, I'm probably being vulnerable. It's the same kind of thing. That, like, if I'm going to engage with someone in that kind of, doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship, it could be a friendship, discussion, whatever, right? Supportive dynamic. It's like, if this is a little bit unsettling, or a lot unsettling, if it's scary in some degree, I'm probably being vulnerable. If I'm being vulnerable, they're sensing that about me. And that will create a connection. This is one of the ways that primates find and connect with each other. Yeah. Totally agree. In my opinion, I was on a lot of different healing paths. One of the things I saw in a lot of those paths is that this idea that we're pursuing, we want to get to a place where it feels good. I want to be in a place where I'm happy and I feel loved and I'm just full of the bliss of the universe. I agree, that's really nice. But in my opinion, that's not being healed. Healing is the point where I can stand in the face of the storm and I know who I am and I know where my strength is. And this discomfort this assault, this insult will not shake me. That is like a superpower. And again, the reason I do this, all of it, is because my priority in all of this is the unborn children. The children that have not been born yet. Because so much of this is decided in the first 18 months, I want to get more and more people understanding how all this stuff works, so that when the child arrives in their life, they can be the superhero that can stand in the face of the storm. Because children absorb what they're around. If I can stand in the face of all the discomfort in life and say, I know who I am, I know what my values are, I know where I'm going, and I know I'll get through this. Like, if I've got a child that's living and bubbling and whatever around me, they will absorb that intrinsically. And then we've just given that child the greatest gift we can possibly give another human being. We gave them a secure attachment style. We gave them the ability to face discomfort with strength, right? That's my priority. That's why I do this.
So would you, because before you explain those, when the experiment happened,
Yeah.
there's the first thing.
That experiment is done after 18 months because of child rules and all that kind of stuff. But the belief from attachment specialists is that, yeah, it's 18 months. And increasingly there's the evidence to support it's 12.
And the experiment is done afterwards because the reaction and the body experience for the first.
Yeah, at 2 years or 3 years, the attachment system is already developed. All right, all sobering statistic. They found these kids that had really shitty first years, 12 months. We'll say, the term they use in America now, ACE, which is adverse childhood experience. Because I guess they don't want to say childhood trauma. I don't know. But so they found these children that basically had really unfortunate, traumatic first 12 months of their life. And then they found them and they rescued them from this terrible situation. Then they found another group of kids that had a good first 12 months, and then like their parents died in a car accident or whatever, and now those kids are not in a great situation, right? They go from a loving, caring home filled with the 5 pillars of attachment in some capacity, and then after 12 months, somewhere between 12 and 18, something catastrophic happened and these children are no longer in that situation. They lost their family. They take both kids. This is, I think each group was like 64 or something, and they spent $1 million over 18 years. $1 million per child. They gave them tutors. They gave them caregivers. They gave them a safe place to live. They gave them all the stuff they needed for sports and activity and whatever. Every possible thing that you could think of to give these children, all of them, they did it. And what they found was the kids in this group, the ACE group, their graph was like this. And the kids in this group, their graph was like this. In every measurable way, sociability, conflict resolution, emotional management, self-awareness, processing difficult emotions, the one inhibitive, the thing where you can like delay pleasure, the one where you're like, I cannot do this now because I'm going to get a reward later. way that they could measure the progress of these children, these kids were somewhere between, 10 to 30% better.
It's like the terry cloth monkey experiment. You know that one?
I think I've heard of it, yeah.
Where I think it's like some of the original research on attachment was with monkeys. I don't know exactly what type of monkeys, but some of the monkeys they would let be with their mothers.
Yeah.
And in others they would give like a pseudo mother, which was like, I don't know, like a wire thing that they put like terry cloth around so that when they scared the monkeys, they could like clutch onto their mother. And then some of them they gave nothing to, so they had no object to even attach to as a pseudo mother. And there was a lot of like psychological and physiological effects in the monkeys that didn't, even the ones that had no comfort at all, even the ones with the fake terry cloth mother fared better than the ones that just had no supportive thing to grip onto when they were afraid. And I don't know, it's interesting. Look it up.
Absolutely. Back in the 50s in America, it was further than that. Anyway, like there was epidemics going around, and then there are these babies that would end up in the hospital, and they were just kind of beginning to get to this idea of like basically the latent bacteria in the air and infections and all that kind of stuff. And so there's these babies that are in the hospitals, and they said, we don't want to infect them with anything, so we need to keep our distance. And so thousands and thousands of babies in America will spontaneously die if they don't get some kind of human connection and support. It's almost like it's baked into the human biological system at that age that if you do not get that kind of support, you just self-terminate. Exactly, yeah. And so there was some nurse that was, not actually educated, but she had a big heart, and she said, I don't want to, there's no way we're going to, and so she broke all the rules, and she would go in and sneak in after hours, and she would spend time with these babies, right? And she'd do what she can, right? Sure, someone got infected. Thing is, they noticed it later, going backwards, and they're like, why are these kids doing well, and those ones are falling apart? And eventually they found this nurse, and she came clean about it.
Oh, wow.
This is like the ones that she had. So it was a blind study. It was an ultra-blind study. So they didn't even know that it was happening, and they just realized, and they said, what? And then they began to reproduce this. They said, oh my God, like when it comes to babies, they need this more than anything else, honestly. So, how did I get onto that? I don't remember. But, yeah. So, the attachment stuff, in my opinion, has been really well, it's got a good pedigree, it's got very smart people working on it, and I feel like it's beyond question at this point. And then, this part, the core wounds part. The labels of attachment: dismissive avoidant, anxious preoccupied, and fearful avoidant. The way I have this, this box right here. The way that I look at it now, like if you come and you're one of my clients, I sit and I ask you a bunch of questions. We go through this over hours and hours, and what we begin to find out is we begin to find your dysfunctional coping mechanisms that exist in your life, like running from connection, or calling somebody 30 times when they don't call me back, or whatever, right? There's a bunch of different mechanisms we use, and then when I see that, I go like, oh, that's right here. That's kind of an avoidance strategy. Oh, and this one's an anxious strategy. And this one's kind of in the middle, and this one's kind of like it ping pongs back and forth. And then what happens is someone that demonstrates a bunch of different behaviors of the avoidant type, we would loop that together and say, oh, they are DA. But for me personally, I don't find that useful. If we're interested in helping this person develop a better life, putting a label on them, DA, does nothing. It doesn't help us. What helps us is understanding what each of these points are and what's the fear and the wounds that operate underneath it. What is the wound that is creating my coping mechanism that is then creating an outward expression of my behavior that is then toxifying my relationships, right? So you kind of got to go all the way down. Once you find that, my opinion, we end up over here, which is simply there's some way that they want to feel wanted, chosen, and prioritized, and they did not get an adequate amount of these 5 pillars. And they probably have quite a few traumas also. So we find the traumas, try to discharge the payload of the traumas and try to get the memories integrated, and then we do practices over here and what this stuff is. Conflict without judgment. Yeah,
I thought it would be a fun one.
it is a fun one.
Yeah. How do we hold space for people?
Yeah. I think this is very much in line with what we've been talking about so far. It's this idea that, like, I gotta know where I am, and I gotta know what my values are, and I gotta know where my lines are. I gotta know what I'm capable of giving in this moment. And if I know that, and holding space is within my realm of capability, then I can hold space. And if this person is very dysregulated, I know that holding space for them is going to be challenging. There's going to be a lot of big emotions swirling around. They will probably point fingers and blame and shame in different directions, and sometimes it'll be me. And again, it feels like a superpower to be in that space and say, I can stand in the face of the storm and I can hold my ground. And I can understand when that person points the finger at me and they say something disparaging, they say something negative, or they blame me for some problem, blah, 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 blah. I understand that is a 5-year-old child having a temper tantrum. And yeah, it's a 5-year-old child having a temper tantrum. And they're just being like, ah! And if I can slow down time, I can look at this situation, and I can be like, I can imagine him or her as a 3 to 5-year-old child sitting in the living room of some house, and then there's their mother or father. And that job has been placed on me now, and now they're acting out all this pent-up rage and emotion and whatever else directed at me. The best, most loving thing I can do is just let that happen. But that's someone who's dysregulated. If we're going to be in a conflict, I don't know, what do you think? Do you think conflicts descend into judgment the majority of the time?
No, but I think that a lot of people, and also people don't grow up having the toolkit to deal with conflict.
Yeah.
And because you don't have the toolkit, you place a lot of judgment. I also think it ties back to the question of, like, am I emotionally available, right? Like, if you having conflict with someone and you're feeling really judgmental, you're probably emotionally unavailable.
Cliff notes.
How do we define conflict in this case, though?
I also think conflict can be described as a lot of things, but I also think, like, the intention of conflict is important too, right? And, like, kind of describing what type of conflict you're having.
Yeah, but okay, so to define conflict, I'm going to say, like, a simple argument. That's obviously a conflict, right? Mm-hmm. A difference in values. So where conflict, I think of conflict as this way. I have a desire to take action in a certain direction. Mm-hmm. I want to get something, I want to push something away, I want to acquire something, I want to do something, right? You also have a desire, but yours goes in a different direction. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and if they diverge in such a way that, like, you can do your thing, I can do my thing, and no problem, then we do that. But when my direction conflicts with yours, in the sense that, like, if we do mine, we can't do yours. If we do yours, we can't do mine. It's kind of back to the compromise negotiation thing, that like one of them has to happen, or none, right? But like somebody loses. So okay.
Unless it's resolved really well and you just become closer.
True. But I'm thinking, okay, so that was a high level definition. I'm trying to think of something a little more specific, which would be along the lines of like, I'll wrap in the long distance thing. It's like, I haven't seen you in weeks. We haven't actually been in the same place in weeks or months. And I'm feeling this disconnection from you. And it would mean a lot from me if you would send me a message every morning after I wake up or every night before you get to bed. And so if it was just a quick little check-in to say, hi, how you doing? Okay, so that's my request. That's my need. I'm saying I'm feeling disconnection. I have a need for greater connection because it feels good for me. I'm going to make a request from you to do it. And you say, no, I'm busy. I don't want to feel compressed into some kind of artificial schedule. I have a need for independence and autonomy. I have a need for independence and autonomy. I don't want to fit any kind of fixed, like, wouldn't it be better if, like, you knew that when I sent you a message, it came from my heart in that moment, and I'm not trying to stick to some kind of arbitrary schedule? Wouldn't that feel better? Okay, now I have conflict. Because two people pursuing their own personal needs, and they don't line up. And as you say, what often happens, one of them will be like, man, I can't believe that guy. He's such a jerk. He's so selfish. Like, all I'm asking for is just like, how much does it take to do 5 seconds every day just to send me a little check-in note? I literally see this in my school all the time. And then the people on the other side, it's just like, oh man, I feel choked. She's trying to control me. It's like, why can't she just be okay? Like, I'm living my life. I care about her. She's my partner. I'm not messing around, blah, blah, blah. Why can't she just be okay with what I offer? Because I feel like she keeps asking for something that is more than what I'm willing to offer. So does that mean? Now I have conflict. Both of those sides judge the other, which is exactly what you're talking about, at least in my mind. Right? Both sides are judging. It's like, he's a jerk for not giving me what I want. And he's over there being like, she's a jerk for asking me for what I'm not willing to just give openly in my heart. For asking for more, right? That's conflict, and it's judgmental. And in that space, it's very, very hard. I feel like it's very, very hard to catch yourself. Be like, oh my goodness, I actually am being judgmental right now. I am looking at this person and making an assessment about their behavior according to my value system. And she has found lacking. I'll just judge her. Then condemn her almost. It's very difficult and challenging to say she is an autonomous human being that gets to do anything and everything that she wants to do. And I can't ask her to go beyond that. That's a very different thing. And it requires a great deal of grounding to say, it's this idea, if you love something, set it free. I give you full autonomy to be and do anything you want. Connect with however you want, message how you want, whatever, right? Whatever it is that you value and how you're going to behave, go do that with my blessing, with my encouragement. Because doing that allows me to watch her and see who she really is. I say, go do and be everything that you are, and then I'm going to watch. And then from my place of watching, I can be like, oh, does this align with me? Does this align with me or does it not? How close do I want to be to this person? If that's who they really are, now of course we can make requests. Be like, hey, this is a true story from my life. They're like, I'd spend 3 days of sitting in bed watching Netflix. I'd kind of like to get out of the house and be a little bit more active, right? That's me expressing a need, right? Unfortunately, that person took that very personal and detected it as a judgment, and then there's a lot of drama after that. But even in that, I got to say, oh, now I understand more and more about who this person is, at least where they are right now, and I get to realize that we are not in alignment anymore. And knowing that we're no longer in alignment, rationally, not emotionally, I can rationally come to the conclusion we are no longer in alignment. That means I can bring the relationship to a graceful close without an emotional payload, without a big explosion. I can keep honoring this person in a loving and caring way and say, now, it might be difficult for them. You might have a rough time. She may not be able to do it as balanced as I am. That's okay. But if I can say, I still care about you, I still enjoy your company, but when it comes to singular partnership, this is not in alignment with my needs. So I need to defend myself, and I need to take a step back. And that gives us a chance to have relationships that end gracefully, which then they don't have this big explosion, right? Have a whole life of like explosions. Relationship comes to an end, boom!
Did you say relationship?
Relationship. Oh,
I was like, that's a good one.
I don't know.
That's all
I'm recording it. I will check the recording. I generally don't go for Freudian slips, but hey. Did that feel like I covered the topic of conflict without judgment?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Conflict can be beautiful.
it can be. In fact, one of the things another thing that blew my mind as I got into this is that organic systems need stress in order to grow. You have no stress, the organic system will not grow. But one of the things we, Western society in particular, is trying to do in the space of relationships and dating is to try to create an environment where there's no stress. I know it'll be a great relationship when I just feel happy and joyful all the time. He's totally got me and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, if there is no stress, that relationship will, yes? Oh, okay. Okay. That relationship will wither and die. Yes.
Around, there are so many reasons for stress,
Yeah.
and you expect that, oh my god, at least in a relationship I don't have a stress.
Yeah.
It isn't normal to expect like,
Oh, it's normal.
hey,
It's normal.
10% of my life,
Yeah.
please, I will not say the good upside because there's so much stress in all other areas of the life.
Right.
So, okay, I will not grow, but okay,
Right.
just leave me alone.
Well, see, relationships can be anything right? There's no instruction manual, there's no law, there's no relationship beliefs. So you can create a relationship that's anything you want. If you've got piles of stress elsewhere in your life, and you're like, what I'm looking for is ... You fill in the ... and it's like, I want to be in a place where I'm in a close one-on-one relationship with someone where there's physical connection, emotional support, intimacy, and no stress, right? Then know that that's where you're at.
I should check what my partner wants.
Yes. Well, and put that on the table right at the beginning. This is what I'm looking for. And there's these people out there that tell me that if we're not having any stress from the relationship, we're not going to grow. I'm okay with that right now, right? But it's like, for right now, I need my relationship to be a refuge, a shelter from the other stressors in my life.
And conflict and stress doesn't have to be explosive, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to be this blowout fight. It can be
Yeah.
a conversation, and that's still
Exactly.
conflict, and that's still a little bit of stress, right? Because when you're a little vulnerable,
Yep.
a little stress, that's not a bad thing.
It's a beautiful thing. It's how it's literally how we move forward, how we grow, and a little bit at a time. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Conflict doesn't have to be a big blow up.
no reason to stress. Well, that much.
We don't need big stress, but little stress, right? But think about it. Think about it. You're in a relationship. Think about you're in a relationship that meets your idea of a refuge and a safe space, right? Still got to decide what you're eating for dinner. Still got to decide where you're going on the weekends. Who's going to whose house for dinner or whatever, right? And it's like it may be enough of a refuge that those things don't feel stressful, but at some point in time, you still got to step out of your own little world and take this other person into account, and there might be conflict there.
Stress and unsafe are two different things.
Yes.
If you ever feel unsafe, you gotta get yourself out there. Feel a little stressed.
Yeah. Even the safety one is, well, physical safety for sure, but emotional safety is a little bit more tricky when on the avoidant. On the avoidant end of the spectrum, they will frequently feel emotionally unsafe, even though there's not really any evidence to support that.
And then you have to carefully listen between anxiety and intuition.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they sound very similar. They're very different.
Yeah. How to keep connection along this relationship?
But to change question, why keep the connection?
That is a good question.
It's actually very good.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be like a fun debate. Not a debate, but like a
Yeah.
it's a relationship.
What's that?
Some people are more suited to
You
long
get an open
distance than
relationship.
others.
Well, you can. I mean, yeah,
just
because
tell
it's
it.
like it's a good question. I've been in a long distance relation-ish type thing for the last few years, and it's again, and maintaining that connection is challenging, and sometimes it's closer, and sometimes it's less close. I've noticed, looking at my own history, that the times of closeness directly correlated to how much insecurity and anxiety I was feeling.
When I feel bad, I'm messaging, please, I miss you every
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
And when I'm okay,
Yeah.
lost for
I think long distance relationships are they go against what our entire system was built for.
Amen.
So trying to maintain a long distance relationship is already going against nature, in my opinion. Still. Because relationships exist over here. I mean, what we're talking about right now, relationship, it's a concept, right? Like, here comes this person, another human being, and like, we're in a relationship. Well, we just invented some third thing that's kind of non-specific that floats around here in the ether. It's called a relationship, right? We just birthed it into nothingness, out of nothingness. And now we're both like, have this loyalty, honoring something with this relationship. And it's like, we impose all these rules on ourselves about our relationship to this third conceptual thing. And that's hard. It's a very hard thing. We forget that there's like another 10 million bits of data flowing around our nervous system that are, all of them are oriented towards the person being right here. And so we're literally going against all of our genetic programming, all of our evolutionary programming for what a relationship means. There's hunter-gatherer tribes in the Amazonian basin that don't even have a concept in their brain for when the person leaves their site. Their language, because the concepts in their brain, language is here, it's conceptual.
Like anxious attachment.
So, no, it's the
I'm
opposite.
just kidding.
It's the opposite. Is that, like, they don't have a word. They don't have a word for something that's not here. As soon as it's outside your view, and the researchers that came out and talked to them, they're linguistics people, and they're being like, well, how do you describe something that's not, your grandma was here, and now she's somewhere else? And they're like, oh, well, we can talk about the time that grandma was here. Like, they're like, why are you talking about anything that is not in your direct field of observation. Like you're telling fantasies. This is what the tribal people are saying. If you're talking about something that you didn't personally witness, how does it work? It's like I have a word for what I witnessed. I have a word for what you witnessed. So if you're here with me, we can talk about what you witnessed. But as soon as it goes beyond that, it's gone.
So you only talk about the present moment.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I got all that.
Yeah, he would love that one. And they don't. The tenses. Kurt totally would love that group. In fact, I've often wondered why hasn't he gone there? But they also have this thing where it's like the tenses for past tense. It's like it's happening now. It's something that I witnessed. It's something that my grandfather witnessed, and then it's gone. There's no other word for it. So if you can't describe it in the concept of my witnessing now or yesterday or something my great-grandfather or my grandfather did, then it disappears. It's Don't Sleep, There Are Snakes. I think it's the name of the book, but I only did the clip notes, so I might be remembering so much wrong. Anyway, how does this link into long-distance relationships? Long-distance relationships are a conceptual fabrication and a negotiated agreement with another person. And if that person isn't here to solve all the other 10 million bits of human evolution that are trying to establish connection, we're gonna have a rough time. So how do we do that? We can trick the system. We're pretty good at that.
It seems like you said, it's a bit of a facade, a construct that the two people have agreed to in order to meet some need for connection. So like creating a pseudo connection in a way.
You know what I think it is?
A what?
I think it's
Pseudo is like a fake. I don't know if fake is the right word, but like a false connection.
pseudo's kind of hard to define.
It's like a faux jacket. It's pseudo fur.
Yeah.
Like fake jacket. Yeah.
Looks like it, but it's not really. Yeah.
Fake sounds judgy.
But think about it this way. If my theories are correct, and every child comes out of the womb wanting to feel wanted, chosen, prioritized, well, if I'm in a relationship and this person's prioritizing me, hey, I win. I get to feel wanted, chosen, prioritized. And on top of that, I don't have to do anything for it. I just gotta feel it. Put the label, change my Facebook status. Ta-da! I'm in a relationship. Somebody prioritizes me. Somebody has chosen me as their partner. I think that's all it is. What does it feel like to have connection? I'm asking you.
What does it feel like to have
This connection. This connection. You're saying keep, meaning it was there, and it runs the risk of being lost. So there's something that you're.
This was just a hypothetical question.
Oh yeah.
It was. But
That's a very good question.
yeah, that's a very good question because there's so many different kinds of connection, right?
Yeah.
But if we're strictly talking romantic, if you can get up for 1 second,
Okay.
step to the left, and then point to wanted, chosen, prioritized.
Wanted, chosen, prioritized.
I think that's what connection is. Connection is someone that you want to choose you and to be prioritized by. And that's connection. Because anyone can do all of that for you.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's about meeting someone who you want to have provide all of that for you.
Yep.
That's how I define it.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, like one of the challenges I'll give to people that are really, they're basically in the throes of dysregulation, usually because of a breakup, and they'll go through this thing about like what they want to hear from their partner, right? They'll say, I want him to say that he loves me, or I want him to ask for my opinion before he goes out and buys dinner, or whatever, right? And then we play this little exercise. It's like, let's take that exact same situation and we'll put it, you're having that interaction with the bum that's sitting in front of McDonald's on 5th Street, right? And he says, hey, I love you, and what do you want for dinner tonight? And you're just like, that's no, like you're repulsed by this idea, right? But it's exactly this. We want it, there's some people we want it from, and other people we don't.
Yeah.
Right? So, psychologically speaking, let's see if I can draw a chair here. Primary attachment figure. I think of it like this. There's like a chair that exists inside my psyche, and that chair is for the primary attachment figure. And when I'm born, that's mom. Because mom has the heartbeat that I heard when I was in the womb, so that means safety. Later on, it might shift around to other people in my life, but later on as an adult, we become involved in romantic relationships, and then we choose a person. And that person then gets placed in the seat. That person now becomes my primary attachment figure. But, here's the rub. The seat carries with it all the wounding of everything that's been in that seat before that person. So I'm literally, so say the seat's got all this like coffee stains and stuff from my mom. Well, now I pick someone who spills her coffee a lot, and I put her in the seat. The reason I chose her is because she's a lot like mom. And so I grab her and I put her in the seat, and I'm like, you're now my person. And I need you to tell me that you love me. I need you to tell me that I need you to sacrifice stuff in your life so that I feel prioritized, because I didn't get that from mom, right? So it's like the wounding is attached to the seat. And every person that we put in that seat, we suddenly put on their shoulders all the wounds that hasn't yet been unresolved in our attachment system. And that is a recipe for a dramatic ending. Yeah. So, again, coming back to what I said in the beginning, we got to do the homework ahead of time. We have to do the homework so we remove as many wounds as possible from that seat, so that when the next person sits there, they've got less of our crap to carry on their shoulders. Make sense? Right. But see, I agree with that. No expectation, and don't be disappointed, and no judgment and stuff. This is what I hear from a broader sense of the healing community. It's like, don't have expectations for your partner. It's like, but there's some aspects where that just doesn't work. Like, we eat at dinner, I think it's a fair expectation that you're not going to stab me in the throat with a fork. Like, that's a reasonable expectation, right? Like, so, yes, I can have expectations. Where's the line, right? Turns out, in my opinion, the expectations are arising from the wounding that's attached to that seat. So I need to deal with my wounds, because when I deal with the wounds, the expectations evaporate. If I come at it from the other side and I say, just don't have any expectations. Don't expect that he's going to tell me he loves me. Don't expect that she's going to be faithful. Don't expect that blah, 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 blah. I'm literally like, now I've created a war. Because this side is saying, don't expect. And this guy's being like, I totally expect. Right? So now we've got the internal war.
Sounds pretty disorganized.
Yes. They say, coming back to this one, they say 50% of the population on Earth is securely attached.
Really? That many? Everyone I know is fucked up.
Don't believe it. I've never once, ever have I been in a group of people where I would say even close to 50% was securely attached. Never once.
They put it on workshops, so that is that securely attached.
What's that?
They put it on workshops.
It's true. Yeah, they're not in workshops, they're not in healing circles, they don't come to yoga class, whatever, right? It's right? They're off there living their idyllic lives and making babies and whatever, right? I don't know. But they say 50% is securely attached. The other is split between anxious and avoidant. And they say the disorganized is in the smallest group at about 7. That's what the books say. I think that's all hogwash.
Is that globally? Because like I think about like Balinese communities where they probably aren't as isolated as like Western cultures, and I could see them being way less likely to have insecure attachment.
They all do.
Oh really?
They all do.
Well, I don't know. I haven't dated any
They all do.
They all do,
Indonesians, so
Yeah.
try that one sooner down.
Good thing you're in Bali.
It's also not a real statistic because secure people don't go
Yeah, they're not
there.
gonna- yeah, that's
They
exactly-
go in there
yeah.
like that. I would
So
say.
it might be possible, but yeah, and it kind of just like doesn't really matter. I just think that again, if we surrender the labels, we go to the core wounds, stuff becomes better. But most people I meet, I would classify as disorganized because you watch their response mechanism and it's going to shift around a bunch, right? And sometimes it's like if the child's happy and he's calm, and this side is in more control, they're gonna appear as more secure. If they're triggered, and the child hits the hijack button and takes over, then suddenly they're going to seem super insecure, right? It's going to be this huge drama. When I came to Bali, I jokingly said to my travel companion, we're sitting on the airplane in Hawaii, and there's some people getting on, and I was watching them, I'm just like, I bet you I can tell everyone's attachment style by the way they board an airplane. Because attachment styles come out most during stress, right? So if you're in a stressful environment and there's people watching you and you've got something you need to get done in a short time frame, that's a lot of stress. And that's when these things begin to manifest.
Should we tell you how we all board a plane, and then you can tell us our attachment style?
I have to watch you because
We already told them our attachment styles. It's too late.
well, she didn't. But
I did.
She said healthy.
you said, yeah.
That's where she's at this
Whatever that means.
I know. Humans are remarkably bad at self-assessment. It's one of our defining traits.
Maybe that's why the statistics don't work for schooling. Some people might assess that they are, but then
I'm still. I mean, I've just decided I don't care. There's a period of time I was pursuing that, trying to get more info, but I kind of just like I don't care now. But a very important thing is the online tests. There's a bunch of online tests for attachment style. There's zero statistical correlation between an online test and an actual attachment assessment.
Oh. So what's the point of taking an online test?
Because what the online tests do, they give you a snapshot in time that is in alignment with your views of yourself in that moment.
Oh.
And as you go through the healing journey, that will change. And so what they do is they provide, sometimes they're close, sometimes they're not, but they give you kind of change over time. So if you take the same test and you're like, oh, I'm 3% secure, and then you take the same test a year later and you're 20% secure, that is showing that you're making progress. Now, if we take you to an actual attachment assessor, which is a big complicated test, they might come up with a different answer, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that you have made progress.
So there is an objective way of measuring attachment, but that's typically not what people are taking on these free online assessments.
Right. Yeah, an actual attachment assessment is you sit with a person who's been trained to be an interviewer, and they have to ask a very specific set of questions with no emotional payload and no nonverbal cues. So that's challenging in itself. And then while that's happening, you have an audio recorder and a high-speed camera on your face.
Oh,
it's recording all of your micro expressions.
Okay.
And then all of that is then taken to an assessor's office, and they play all the stuff in slow motion, and they look at what you said, how you behaved, what you reacted, all that other kind of stuff. And then but in the end, it's a bunch of experts making a guess, right? So
Right.
it's not like a blood test or anything.
Yeah, but some of there's in science there's tests that are validated.
Yeah.
They statistically can validate whether there's
And this is the same test. I mean, it's gone through a couple of modifications since the 60s, but the same test has been around for about 40 years.
okay.
All the experts now say it's not actually the best test. We've got better ones, but this is the one that's been used for 40 years, so it's got the pedigree, so people keep using it so that you've got a fair comparison. The person who's assessed in the 80s can be compared against someone assess now, and you've got the same assessment mechanism.
Yeah.
So it's called a adult attachment interview. Really exciting name.
Got
So
it.
some of the online tests use the same questions, or
No,
let's use whatever the website decides that we use.
yeah, the online tests are kind of a little smorgasbord out of 2 or 3 different official tests. That's usually what they are, because that allows them to basically run a computer code that takes the different. And the other thing is the online tests are usually ranked from 1 to 5 or -10 to +10 or something. And the actual attachment assessment interview asks you an open-ended question, like, I don't know, I should have this memorized, but one of them might be something like, what was it like when the first time you had a major fight with your parents? And then you answer that question. And then what they're watching for is they're watching for what they call coherence of mind. Coherence of mind is like when I tell a story, am I telling it from the same vantage point? Is it me telling the story, or when I tell the story, do I shift around? Is the tense the same? Is it always past tense, or is it past tense and future? And
Interesting.
because
gives you perspective if people are disassociating like in and out a bit.
well, it's not dissociation, but yeah, it's low coherence. But yeah, and I've actually heard that with most of the people I've talked to around here. That like you start telling a story about a stressful event, and the tense will change. They will be like them talking about their mother then, and then it will shift into a first-person conversation with their mother or parent, partner, or whatever. And this will like shift around, and they don't even know it's happening. It's really wild. Because what that's showing is, my theories on trauma, you're new, but my theories on trauma is that trauma is a manifestation of a memory corruption. It's that when stress hormones elevate to a certain amount, it changes the way our hippocampus stores memories. And at the same time that it does that, it turns off the prefrontal cortex, which is the part that is used to establish narrative memory. So the narrative memory system is shut off, and the procedural memory system is then altered. And now the two systems are out of alignment. We have 2 different memory systems in our brain. And what trauma is that when this prefrontal cortex gets shut off, we can't store the memories. So you'll frequently see people right after they've had a majorly stressful event, and they won't be able to tell you details about it. They'll have brain fog, they'll be blackout. I just talked to someone earlier today. She's just like, had a big fight with someone at a hotel, and then when she's walking away, she's like, you know what, I couldn't even tell you what that person looked like. All I remember is that she had glittery eyeshadow. And it's like, and it happened 3 hours ago. It's like, yeah, that is a direct sign that a traumatic memory got accessed. The amount of stress hormones in your system peaked out above your capacity level. You shut off the prefrontal cortex, and now those memories are not encoded the same way. And that is, anyway, that's my belief on trauma. Is that it is a straight up neurological event that causes these 2 different memory systems to be encoded differently and out of alignment. And then what happens is that there's this big memory blob, this thing that's called consolidation happens. It's like group more things together. So there's a big memory blob with the threatening event, but it's in there somewhere, right? It's like all the stuff going on, all your interoception, your heart rate, your blood cortisol levels, whatever emotions you're feeling, everything is basically lumped together in one kind of swirly blob that's scary. And when that memory gets tapped, it's like a big balloon, and it just dumps its entire payload into your what we call working memory. And so if you were stressed out then, like if your cortisol levels were through the roof then, and that memory gets tapped, your cortisol levels will be through the roof now. It basically takes a physiological snapshot in time, and then it recreates the snapshot now, so that you have a chance to parse through it and figure out what was actually the threatening event. The story I use is, I'm on the plains of the Serengeti a million years ago, and I'm drinking water, and there's a cinnamon tree nearby, and I'm standing in the mud, and a lion jumps out from the bush, and now I'm running away. What just happened is all that stuff, all that stimulus, the mud, the coldness in the water, the smell of cinnamon, the smell of the lime, all that stuff gets looped together into one big memory blob to enhance my chances of survival. And then later on, a week later, I'm walking through the village with my buddy and I smell cinnamon. All memories that involve cinnamon now loop to the surface. And there's this great big one. And your brain says, let's look inside that one. And it, whoop, and then shh. And now all the physiological responses to that stress get poured into my brain. And now I'm super triggered because I smelled cinnamon. And the reason the brain does that is because it says, when it's big, when it's a big memory and it's all filled with crap, that's not helpful. I can't use that to predict the future for a future threat. I can only predict the future if I have a small detail that I can work on. Lions are dangerous, water is not. Lions are dangerous, cinnamon is not, right? But what I have is I have a big memory that says dangerous and cinnamon's in there. And so the brain will be like, access that one, dump it into working memory, hopefully we're safe now, let's chop it all up and figure out what is actually the threatening event. And then that all gets encoded into the narrative memory system in a process that we call integration. It's integration. People talk about healing trauma. That's what it is. Healing trauma is bringing the two memory systems back into alignment and basically emptying out these same memory blocks. So that once they have discharged their emotional junk, then it's like it stops being triggering. Just straight up. Like it was trauma yesterday. I mean, it was something that was triggering yesterday. I go through the integration process. It is now not triggering. It is just a story in my life. It's just something that happened, and there's no emotional feeling attached to it.